Hi everyone. So I'm still not done with my work. Unfortunately, I got really sick and then Martha got really sick and had to have a sub. Now the kids are on spring break, so I have another week that I have to wait. But I have completed the bulk of my work, including a diagnostic assessment on the first day. With that assessment, I gave this to the students, and my instructions were for them to cut out the leprechauns and then measure the different items, and I asked them to measure the length of the items. Um, and that was all the instruction that I gave them. I wanted to know if they knew what length was versus what width was, if they knew how to measure, if they knew to start on the edge versus in the middle, that sort of thing. So what I ended up doing was a line item analysis following the assessment, and I divided the children up into two different groups. Because I didn't have very much background on the students and I hadn't taught them before, there was no bias in my creating of the groups. The only thing I did was ask Martha for some guidance as to which students worked best not with other students, and she just kind of looked over my groups and said that they would work, or the students should be moved because they don't work with this person well enough, that sort of thing. I just had some guidance from her because she knew her class. After that was done, I came in the next day and I let the students know that they were in Group A or Group B. Group A is my classical group. This is the kind of instruction that we all kind of grew up with, but it's more structured. I am using EDI, Explicit Direct Instruction, and I handed the students out this packet. And in the packet, we start with a learning objective, and then we activate our prior knowledge. We go through definitions of vocab that we're going to be needing, things that you would see on a word wall. But with this, it's not just me reading and them listening. What we do is we begin, I read while they track along. Then they read with me. And then after we read it together, in an ideal classroom, I would pull two sticks at random. But since I didn't know the students, I just kind of picked two different students and asked them what our learning objective was. We did that with the Activate Prior Knowledge and with the definitions. With the definitions, we also did examples, and we kind of discussed what they meant to the students. After that, we turned and we worked on step-by-step instructions on how to solve the problems that we were going to be faced with. So again, we read it together. I asked them what it meant, and then we worked through the problems step by step. First, we did it, I kind of led the problem solving. After that, they worked with a partner. Their instructions were to read one step, then do that step, just to ensure that they were learning the steps to solve the problem. We did a couple problems on the first day, and then we ran out of time. The second day, we worked through a few other problems with different objects. We're working in non-standard measurements, so I didn't want them using rulers. We worked with large paper clips, small paper clips, counting blocks, those sorts of non-standard objects that you would use. After that, we discussed relevance. A lot of times in classrooms, relevance gets left out, especially with math, and students are left wondering, well, when am I ever going to need to use algebra? So what I did with this one was, I gave them examples of when they're going to need to know how to measure with non-standard items. One was trying to determine if your books would fit in your backpack. That's something that kids are going to need to know for the rest of their lives. Will it fit in their bag? I also had them come up with a few examples as well. We did closure, and then we did a summary of the lesson. With my other group, because it was problem-based, they didn't have a packet. When they came to the floor and we started working together, I posed a question to them. I sat them down. I said, look, the length of a T-Rex's foot is 53 blocks long, and the width is 35 blocks long. Now I'm going to give you a cutout of a T-Rex footprint, and I need you to tell me which is the width and which is the length based on what I have just told you. And the night before, I cut out a very large T-Rex footprint. It's 3 meters long, so it's the exact size of a T-Rex foot. And they sat in smaller groups, about 3 kids per group, and they measured. And it was interesting to watch them and watch other groups see what one group was doing and what was working and what wasn't working. I went from group to group. I asked them what their strategies were, what they were doing to help them through it. We did this a few times, a few different ways, and then we went to measure other objects the next day. And again, I posed them with the question. And basically, I had the answer in the question, but they had to come up with the solution and the steps to get there all on their own. So my next steps are to just review with them. The 3 lessons are done. I want to review and then do a summative assessment with the class. With the summative assessment, I'll be doing another line analysis, and I'm going to take the 2 graphs and charts and put them side by side and see if there was any improvement from the diagnostic assessment to the summative assessment, and then see if one group fared better than the other as far as they retain the information a little better. That was the goal of this instruction, was to see if one method worked better than the other. So that's all I have left, is just to do that. So I have a few questions for you all. Have any of you decided to do a diagnostic and summative assessment? Have you split your class into groups? If you did, how did you come up with your grouping? And how are you planning on compiling your data? I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Bye.